All right. Just want to verify everyone can see the screen. Um, Feel free to unmute if you have any questions. Otherwise, you may type it in chat and I'll get to it when I see it. But without further ado, welcome to the power of storytelling, specifically for aligning your business, but also has to do with a lot of other things that as life coaches, often deal with. My name is Eric Bejleri. I'm a life coach that specializes in helping entrepreneurs handle money stress, business stability, and work life balance. And I also happen to love storytelling of all kinds. Actually, when I was much younger, I used to be obsessed with myth and legends. I used to know the mythology of many different cultures and like ancient civilizations just off the top of my head. Um, and I just loved books and just fantasy and all that kind of stuff. Turns out our brains are built to love that kind of stuff, to work with story. Hence how this PowerPoint came to be. Now, storytelling, as it happens, is a deeply ingrained and nuanced topic that most businesses hire trained marketing professionals because how deep it can be. We're just scratching the surface here. This to fully understand how it all happens requires years and years of research and experience. But regardless, even this introductory should be useful for all levels of businesses, mainly because storytelling is so ingrained that turns out businesses of all kinds have to know about it. Most of the information I'll be talking about today comes from three sources in particular. One is the book called *Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind* by Professor Yuval Noah Harari, as well as *The Science of Storytelling* by Will Storr. Additionally, West Virginia University's Public Information Regarding Marketing and Storytelling. So we're going to get through here. I'm going to start with the science of storytelling and how it kind of works with us as humans, moving on to how existing businesses and brands use it in their own businesses and their own marketing. And then finally, we're going to go ahead and build up our own brand stories. So I hope you guys have something to write with. Pencil, paper, pen, digital, totally fine. But we're going to get a little bit of work done today. Any questions before we begin? All righty. Ooh, so exciting. Okay, let us get in here. So, let's see. Change the slide. There we are. Awesome. So what is storytelling? Now, to start this off, I want to define exactly what a story is. Will Storr, brilliant man, devoted most of his life to studying what storytelling actually is and how it's used. He describes stories as a description of something happening that contains some form of sensation or drama. It is, in other words, an explanation of cause and effect that is soaked in emotion. Now, this explanation might seem vague or strange, but if you think about it, it actually pertains to a lot in our lives. A story, an explanation of cause and effect that has some sort of emotion tied to it. We explain things all the time in our daily lives. The cause and effect doesn't necessarily have to be real as well. Like we can, with like for reading a book, we can see cause and effect of like what the characters in the novel are doing versus the outcomes of that novel. Um, Books, fables, myths, and legends all constitute stories, but there are other things that can constitute as well. Because the story can be abstract or strange or vague, as according to the description. Art is a story, or it can be an avenue of storytelling. Some of the best works of art are the ones that invoke a feeling in the viewer, and that can change from person to person. We have a feeling based on what we see that has we develop a story around a piece of art, and that becomes how we feel. So our brains are hardwired to work with stories because as a survival tactic, we are obsessed with change because we have to be. We instinctively investigate potential changes to our environments all the time. If something moves in our peripheral vision, our eyes move quickly to see what it was. We hear a loud noise, our head turns and inspects what's going on. The more information we have, the better we can make decisions. Since after all, we can't move to avoid danger if we don't know that it exists in the first place. So these stories constantly create moments of unexpected change. We automatically begin to make new sense of the world around us by starting to explain the new change via cause and effect. We have to know. So even in our day-to-day lives, something as simple as uh, if you take the train to work, all of a sudden your train is delayed. You start thinking, okay, dang, how am I going to get to work on time? We become the protagonist in this very minor story of us figuring out cause and effect, how we're going to get there. We use that innate tenacity to push ourselves to act and to move, to make it matter. And as life coaches, I'm sure we've all heard the many plethora of stories that we have heard our clients say about themselves, about the world around them, um, about the other people in their lives, right? I'm not good enough to do this. I failed this before. I'm going to fail this again. Beliefs, our limiting beliefs and assumptions are none other than stories. We use tools to change those stories into something more pragmatic, into something more positive, right? And the same thing affects how we view other people in the world around us. It is how we make sense. Like this person scolded me and insulted me. That must mean they're a mean person. Or maybe we're a bit more generous. They insulted me, they scolded me. Maybe they're just having a bad day. Something happened to them in the morning, right? We add a story to what is going on. So this is all to say that humans are storytellers to our core, and we tell ourselves numerous stories all the time, many of them being deeply ingrained to our being. Now, one last bit is how stories are basically fundamental to ourselves, but also our society in general, right? According to Professor Harari uh, and his book on *Sapiens: A Brief Human History of Humankind*, stories are how we as a species managed to create civilization itself. We are the only species capable of mass organization because stories are a way of promoting people, of uniting people under one banner. Uh, Shared history and shared story. We can look at a bit of ground, see a line in the ground there, say, this is my side, this is your side, right? If we're trying to like split up something. Entire nations that we connectively believe that a nation exists because of the story. We're like, okay, this plot of land here consists the entirety of Greece or something, right? We collectively believe in something that may exist entirely in our imaginations, kind of like myths and legends, story of Gilgamesh, Beowulf, the Pharaoh, a living god, and thus we must listen to them for it is their right to rule. Egypt is belongs to the Pharaoh, our divine leader, right? Um, so additionally, our brains also struggle differentiating between what's real and imagined, right? Similar to like those limiting beliefs and stories. If you think you can't do it, chances are your body will move to make it so that that turns that into real. It's why if we watch a scary movie at night, somehow our house is much darker and much stranger than it was any time beforehand. All of a sudden, there might be a ghost in the closet that was never there before. We love to turn things into reality, even if it only exists in our head. So, and additionally, stories, and this is probably the most crucial part, stories are often a vehicle for ideas, for feelings. A lot of stories are meant to impart lessons or thoughts or to communicate with the audience or whoever is reading it. For example, really simple that we probably all have heard about. The story, the fable of the boy who cried wolf, right? A kid lies over and over again, trying to convince the townsfolk and to rally when there's no real danger. And they end up being so annoyed that when danger finally comes around and he's telling the truth, they don't listen to him, right? Lying is bad. The moral of the story, lying is bad. Don't write. and even go so far as like the way science fiction author Ursula K. Le Guin mentions how change and like revolution starts in the pages. Our society changes based on stories all the time. Uh, any questions on what I've talked about so far? Awesome. All right, cool. And feel free to share into chat. Let me just check. So, how do brands utilize storytelling? Since it's ingrained so much into our civilization, of course, businesses and our society as a whole utilize storytelling, right? So brands and companies will have entire teams of people, of trained marketing professionals, right? Entirely devoted to maintaining a brand's identity or influence as much as possible, right? Marketing professionals know that stories in business matter. It enables people to make connections with the business. It lets the consumer know that they can be heard or understood. Stories are easy to digest and we can relate to it and they can get us to care. And stories are significantly more compelling than a statistic might be because of the connection between the head and the heart that makes people really resonate with what they see, right? To make it full, to make them understand how these statistics may actually matter. And they build trust with the brand. They build trust with the business. The existence of a brand story, which is the what, the why, and the how. So what a brand does, why they do it, and how they do it is what's known as a brand story. It can be a mission statement. It can be like an about page, just like how the brand came to be and what they are dedicated to doing. For example, a brand that we'll actually see, I'll actually have some examples, so I'm going to leave that for in a bit. Um, so what we want to look at is the brand story connecting with the audience and does everything based on how the audience that they're trying to connect to. So when we as coaches think about what our clients need or like what our niches are, we want to think about what stories do our clients already believe in? What stories do they communicate with them? How can we communicate with them in those same stories? The single most important part of your story has nothing to do with the story itself, but to the audience you're telling it to and how it relates to them. You can have a great, well crafted story, but if it doesn't line up with your audience, it won't mean a thing for your business. Right. Um, so we want to check to make sure brands specifically want to check to make sure what a story is or like who are they marketing to, who are they trying to connect with, and how do they as a business make it so that way their story connects with them. And as life coaches we do a similar thing with our clients and our niches, right? We want to help them. We identify their pain points, the things that they are worried about most, and we talk to them like, hey, I understand that you may be feeling this way and have these problems, but we as a coach we understand that and we are here to help you out, right? So it's moving on to like examples of how brand stories are. These are a couple of existing brands. Some of them you may not have heard of. One of them I'm sure everyone has heard of. We'll start with the our left and go to the right here. So I think probably the best example of this is Atlas Pet Company. It starts out with the story of a guy who went on a soul-seeking adventure after losing his three best friends with his dog. They would go hiking and stuff until he found out that the leashes and the harnesses that his dog were using would get worn out constantly. And having just lost three of his best friends, he looked to his dog and said, "I'm not going to lose another one." So he developed a company about making the strongest, most lasting dog leashes available, with the idea that you wouldn't compromise for your best friend, neither do we. Right. And that makes you go, well, they really do care about dogs. He genuinely cared about his friend, his best little bud, so much that he didn't want anything bad to happen to him. So he wanted a leash to ensure that he would be able to stay connected with his dog, that in case of danger, he would have that leash or the harness to make sure his dog was okay, right? Warby Parker. Warby Parker is also an incredible story. I'm actually wearing their glasses right now. Regardless of anything, they do make good glasses. But Warby Parker The story behind that was the founder of Warby Parker went on another hiking trip, back-to-back hiking trips. Maybe there's something to go on with off that. Regardless, he went on a hiking trip, dropped his glasses, and broke them. And when he tried to replace them, he found out that the glasses that he wanted to replace were just so incredibly expensive. The glasses industry was 80% owned and basically was a monopoly at that point. Um, and he found out that there are millions and millions of people that need glasses but can't afford them or don't have access to them. So he started Warby Parker. The story behind it is affordable glasses and accessible glasses for everyone. You can't come to a store, we'll deliver them for you. You can't you can just try them out. If you don't like them, send them back, right? Um, if you they started a promotion called buy a pair, give a pair. If you buy a pair of glasses, they'll give one to someone who can't afford it or can't doesn't have access to it, right? And that's kind of how they came to be. And then we have something that I'm sure everyone here is aware of, Apple, right? Steve Jobs, dare to think different, rebel against conformity. When Apple, the computers started coming to the market, all these big blocky computers, like with these sharp edges, like this defined version of the computer start coming out. Steve Jobs says, let's smooth it out and make it a bit different, and make it a bit more powerful. So he started giving like home computers, Apple home computers, right? That are smooth and more user friendly for the average user. And Apple has consistently dared to think different, creating new products and trying to push limitations of what people imagine things should be, right? So when you see Apple, you're like, oh, sleek design, new, different, right? Yes, Stacy.
So I noticed that all like the story that you're sharing, a part of it is sort of the origin story, like the personal experience of the creator. Is that kind of part of the story, or you're just sort of including that for our
The origin story, the great question. Yes, the origin story is in fact part of the brand. A lot of the brand is that part of the story. Uh, and I going back to what, why, and how. The why is usually the origin story. How did this company come to be? What are they doing? How are they doing? How are they sticking to their why? Right. Um, thank you for the question, Stacy. I really appreciate it. Uh, any other questions we have? Any clarifications? Okay, great. Awesome, awesome. But yeah, I think the biggest theme here, I'll just reiterate again, is for a brand story, for like that origin, to a story to consistently um, basically move back to time and time again, is that origin story. How do we, why did this business come to be, and how are we aligning ourselves to our original why? What are we doing? How are we doing it? Why are we doing it? And how can we best ensure that we stick to that theme? Going back to Warby Parker, affordable, accessible eyeglasses, right? Everything that they try to do, or everything that the brand or a brand would like to do, is to stay in alignment with that origin story. Hence alignment in this presentation, right? We keep alignment based on the story that we have, remembering our why and making sure we keep our what and our how consistent. Okay, moving on to the next bit. All right. So here we actually go to stories and alignment, right? We, as life coaches, are uniquely positioned as we are often self-employed with our own practice, right? We are the ones that are working with the clients, and it's all about the clients, right? We as a life coach are the story. In that sense, who we are matters to the client. Why are we a coach? What we want to mean to our clients, how we want to be perceived, how we want to present ourselves, how we want to manage our practice. People like to engage with people, not brands, but brands are necessary as well to get people to know what's about. We have both, luckily. We are the person and the brand, or we can't be. So to think about that, when we build our websites, business cards, we want to make sure we have that story, that origin story, our brand's identity, because it will be integral to what we do. Our brand identity may include color, pictures, the organization of those pictures and colors on a page, how words are set up. Someone that would be, to give an example, let's say someone is a business trying to fight against climate change to create more sustainability and all that, right? So very environmentally focused. Their website may have a lot of green on there, a lot of green and blue, photos of nature, of the environment, and they may organize it in a way that is calming, and showing like how powerful or important that climate change is, right? Their tone, their word choice, their prose might be more indicative to how strongly they feel about protecting our environment is what matters. They may, if they want to be punchy about it, or like very like in your face, they may use stronger words, bolded, right? Short exclamation mark uh, sentences and all that just around their website, letting you know, trying to get your attention. It's like, this is important. Or they may be more toned back, being like, we understand climate change is important. That's why we're trying to do this surrounding it. And then a brand might also look into their delivery. How do they move, or like, how do they send their message across? For example, are they active on social media? How does them being active on social media relate to them as a company? How are they active on social media, right? Are they doing a blog? Are they doing workshops? What is the call to action to get their client to see them and to engage with them? And so, in that sense, with alignment and identity, it's like everything matters, which may be scary, but it could also be in the sense of everything can be intentional, that everything can add to a story. If you have a story, um, to go back to the climate change thing, right? If someone's starting a business because they care about climate change, they saw how much like trash was coming into their environment. They saw like how a local species was driven to the extinction, and like say that their local town animal no longer is there, and how sad that might be, and how they want to preserve nature and make sure that animals and plants are supported. If they go around and promote very anti-climate change things like removing, if they start like donating or doing actions counter to that, we lose trust in them. The story doesn't matter anymore because their actions aren't in alignment with the story. If they donated to various like conservation charities, something like that, that's in alignment. Oh, they're actually doing what they say they're doing. That gives me trust. I believe them. So interaction matters because one, it's once you set up a story, you're also setting up your client's expectations of that story. A business manages expectations and they also manage their presentation. How are they showing themselves to the people around them, to their client? How do they connect with their clients? How do they talk to them? So a lot of it has to do with consistency in values, theme in your activity. This is what I mean by alignment. Once you have a central brand identity, you start bringing things into alignment with it. Ah, I could donate to this charity. These people I work with are stressed out. Maybe I can do something for them to give them free value if they're too stressed, right? Um, Things like that. How can we provide for the people and their problems in a way that is consistent with ourselves and what we believe in? And so, because to bring it back to how we are coaches and how our businesses are, our morals, our values, our beliefs, these things can tie to it. who we are as people, along with how we are as coaches, in that sense, alignment could help with our business, could help with ourselves if we were acting more in alignment to how we want to present ourselves, how we want to help the world around us, right? Beautiful thing about coaches, vast majority of us tend to be good people. You can't really serve someone else and help someone else and not be dedicated and willing to help, right? So when it comes to us coaching, things like this might come intuitively. We have, after all, like I said earlier, we hear stories all the time from our clients. Before we get into the interactivity bit, does anyone have any questions so far? Is everyone ready to start writing their stories? Heck yes. Love it. All right. Next up. Oh, actually, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to show an example of what I mean by the brand story, so that way it might help to have. So this is Atlas Pet Company, one of the examples I had earlier. You can see on their website, very first front and center, dog, right? Big, bold dog. The dog gear built to last, guaranteed for life. And as we scroll down, we see a lot of like neutral colors. It comes off as like professional. But then you have spurts of color, you have more dogs, right? You have showings of the dogs. So even though they're professional, it gives you the feeling of like, well, we still care about our furry friends. We just want to make sure we're serious about it. We're showing you that we are serious. So if we were go now, if we could go through the website and see how a lot of this can act with their like brand identity. But if we go look at their story, for example, early days, right? Founder got his dog, lost three of his best friends, took his dog, went out roaming the mountains and the deserts of Cali, uh, only to find that his dog, cute little pup right there, needed more and like more efficient equipment, something stronger to make sure that they could last on the hikes, to make sure that his dog would be safe because he doesn't want to lose a fourth best friend, right? So you can see like there's just the design of these are leashes built to last, especially if you're adventurous. If you want to go on the adventures you want to go on with your best friend, we got your back. Um, and there's a lot of it of saying we want to make sure it lasts. We want this to have value. So you can see the adventurous vibe is here as well, right? Map of the world, photos of the van of Atlas himself, just in and around nature, and just like what their adventure was, their call to action, how they came to be. Um, so we just see like these big, broad photos of this and like what it means to them. And then you see that here he brings off more details. Details are also important in a brand story. Part of the why, the how, the what, you include the details that are important to making that happen. So he wanted to see all his favorite places with his best friend. So he wanted a dog leash that could last while they were on the road, hanging things out. And now here he is making sure that you can enjoy that with his friend. More photos. This is the building process, showing like the behind the scenes and the connection that he is a team, right? Then we have like the photos of the people here. You guys get the idea. It's a very humanizing story of this is why we care. This is what happened. I lost a bunch of my friends. I started backpacking around the world. Realized that I needed a better dog leash to hang out with my best friend as we did this. Though how we develop strong quality dog leashes in we are a business dedicated to giving you a lasting dog leash for the rest of your pup's life, basically. All right, guys, let's start. And I'm actually going to do this with you. Uh, I'm always happy to write a story or make things better, so I'll do it with you. So story writing time. I have here a couple of prompts that I would hope to go with you to kind of get that vibe of that theme of the story, right? Key point here, the feeling, because every story must have feeling around it. I think these questions might help out. So let's go through one by one and all. talk out loud as we do this. What does the cover of your story look like? Of your brand, of your why? What does the cover look like? Just the front page, the first thing everyone sees. A lot of greens, a lot of yellows, pictures of nature, uh, pictures of people in industry. I think for me, I like a nice like sun over the mountains. What's the writing style like? Is it very personal? Is it very professional? Is it loud in your face? Is it like a poem? Is it chaotic? Is there just random lines and words everywhere? I like to keep mine casual. What's your story about? What's it really about? Is it an adventure like the Atlas Pen Company guy? How he went on a hike? Is it a story of realization of what could be better? How does it start? And what's the core? You guys are free to share in the chat if you'd like. Otherwise, you can keep it to yourselves, whatever works best for you. I think mine is my story is gonna be about realizing that things could be better. That there's always something fulfilling in that life could be better. Now, who is this book for? Who is this story for? Who are the people going to be? What people are reading this? What people are going to be looking to this story? Now, the easy answer is your niche, right? But we can elaborate a little bit more, I think. Entrepreneurs, right? I'm helping out entrepreneurs of all kinds. But I think I also would like to expand. It's the people that are stressed over time, work-life balance, money, uh, stability in business, but people that are like they're the hopeful ones, right? These are the entrepreneurs I have, but they also hold hope in their hearts for a better life, to bring fulfillment. The more we can describe our audience and all the things that they might care about or believe in, uh, the better of an idea we have of the story. Now, for the crux, what's the main theme of your story? It's a story of hope, that life can be better. I think that's what mine's about. And how do you want the reader to feel after reading the book? Should they be left with a feeling of hope? Should they be left with a feeling of empowerment, a feeling of joy, gratitude, love, despair, if that's what you want? And again, as you're kind of going through this, the answers you put down here may not be the answers you keep. Stories change all the time. Like I said before, marketing divisions exist purely for this reason. There are brands uh, devoted to researching this constantly all the time and changing as they see fit. Now we move on into alignment. So we got there eventually. Came up again. Actions. What actions help bring unity to the theme? If you were a character in a book, what does the character do to bring that message, that theme to the forefront? Does the protagonist go fight the mighty monster? Do they sail away to adventure? Or do they give muffins door to door? And that's the way they do it. Look at all these writers in the room right here. Incredible, incredible stuff. Now for an interesting bit, what part of the story or what part of the actions are taking away unity from the theme? There are things that you're doing that are detracting from it. Are there things that you're not doing that could be adding to it, or just has to be tweaked a little bit? The story is about a hero going off to fight this big villain, but there's a B plot of a baker making muffins. That could draw away from the main premise of the story. Unless those muffins are really good, then maybe it might be better. And finally, what is the title of the story? To bring it all together, to bring it under one banner, what do we call it? Again, this takes a while. So don't feel like you have to get everything done right here, right now. But once we have the idea of what our story kind of looks like at this point, what's the feeling, what's the vibe, then we can move into writing our what, why, and how. if I were to give an example, for me, my what, I help entrepreneurs handle money stress, stability concerns, managing work-life balance, right? The why, um, after, for me, spending my entire life to become a software engineer, only to find that I was left unfulfilled in a job that wouldn't be able to give me the future that I had once hoped for. I felt in despair, unfulfilled, stuck and trapped. And talking to my fellows, my peers, my colleagues, people from my age to 20 years my senior, that similar feeling was just permeating throughout the space. It was only until one of my friends decided to make their own art study, become a full-time animator from themselves and to put themselves out there, did I see that even though he was struggling, he was fulfilled and he was happy. Um, and after I found my fulfillment as a coach, I knew that feeling of happiness, of progress, of not feeling stuck anymore. I knew I wanted to come help those people that wanted to become like my friend, like myself, give them that extra push they need to let them know, like, things will be okay. To reinvigorate that hope they once had, right? And then the how. How do we as coaches bring that? How do we help our clients? How do we help that why, that what? For me, my coaching style revolves around being calmful and peaceful, giving people a space away from the stress of their daily lives, right? So they can utilize their brain to solve those creative problems that they might otherwise have. To let them be sustainably tenacious, we'll say. What does that look for you guys? For your coaching styles? How does your why, your what, and your how all relate to each other? How are they in alignment? Give you guys a couple minutes to finalize whatever you'd like and to write a bit more. Okay. Casey, Stacy, Kara, I see you guys are like deep in thought, right? Incredible. All right. Well, how was it? How's the story writing going, guys? What's coming up?
I'll say that this is super, super, super helpful. I'm
Yeah,
really
glad to
appreciative.
hear it.
I think that I'm still early on in the coach training. So, I like bounce back and forth between like, okay, just focus on coaching to like, okay, where am I going with this? But I think that this has given me a really nice structure to build this vision, which have not been able to really put to paper yet. So I really like it. And I'm really appreciative of you doing this. Thank you, Eric.
Oh, well, yeah, of course, my pleasure. Thanks for coming. Absolutely. Ooh, yeah, I guess you're deciding between the two, figuring out what to go next. Gotcha, gotcha. Well, now that you have your, I'm curious if you don't mind me asking, now that you have your kind of like the baseline, that structure there, how do you want to, what's the next step? What's the next chapter? How's it going for the other two? James, Kara, what are you guys doing?
I can go next. I think for me, these prompts really got me into a creative space so that when I was getting down to the real meat of the why, what, and how, I was able to kind of weave in all of those pieces that you had us prompted and think about earlier and really be more concise on what I want to portray to my audience. So that was helpful.
Okay. Okay, awesome, awesome.
Thanks for this. This is really, really useful. I think for me, the block is I've got a really good origin story and why. Like I'm really clear on what led me to this place and all those things. The block for me is then distilling that into a relatable story for the right clientele, like specific enough niche that's not too broad. So yeah, the reflection was good. I wrote down all of the questions and I was like, I'm not gonna be able to get this done in 20 minutes. This is gonna take a lot longer. So I'm gonna
It
like
will, yeah.
some time out, probably maybe Sunday, and just sit with this and go and really reflect on also the practice clients I've had. You know, what part of coaching those clients really resonated with me to help embolden like my why, and then link that to their needs and try and find a bridge between all of those.
Mm.
To put it on a website that is compelling and but aligned. I think that was like a really key thing I took from this was like it needs to be aligned. Like I don't want to be like, oh well, this is what will market well. Like that's the last question I'm asking. You know, I want to be like, what do I want to put forward? What's aligned with who I am, my actions, why I want to coach. So yeah, just trying to like sift through all of that. There's a lot. There's so much. Thanks for kicking up dust in my brain today. That was good.
Hey, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. What's the most important thing your clients need to know about you?
I think like a client before they start, they need to trust that you know what they're up against. You know, like from your dog leash collars, it's like you trust that they actually care about your dog. So you know, I want to help people overcome obstacles I've overcome in my own life. So I want to convey that in the website, right? And be like, oh yeah, I know what that feels like, and try and find this. That's a great question, man. Thanks for the question. Try and find a specific language that will resonate with the clients I want to serve from my own experiences. You know, I've got the language because I went through it myself.
I know that the dust kicked up. You'll figure it out for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the fun
Knowing
part.
you.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that brings us about does it. Thanks guys for so much for coming.